Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, your exclusive source for 2A basketball. And now, your hosts, coming to you from the Slim 4 studio, Andy and Benny Hill.
Welcome to the Fourth Row Podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to 2A basketball here in the beautifully sunny state of Utah.
What a great day.
Beautiful day. I'm your host, Andy Hill. I'm here with the coach, Benny Hill, in the newly renovated Slim 4 studio, sponsored by our good friends at Security National.
Did you notice that popped up right at the time
That was
you said
perfect.
Security National?
That was perfect.
Got our producer back here, Bones,
Welcome.
working the video audio. Happy to have him on the team.
You know what I realized today? I was getting home and I was working this morning and got in the shower. I realized I have to think about what I wear now when I come to the podcast. Before, it didn't matter.
It looked like scrubs. It was Sunday
Yeah.
night, and
So I pulled out my Security National t-shirt and
got a little Fourth Row swag on today.
yeah. So I notice I'll have to be careful now what I wear.
And you have a nice fresh cut.
I got a nice fresh cut. Barber here in town always does me right. So it's nice to be here. Before, again, you never had to think about what you looked at when you came on the podcast. Now,
We actually cut our hair this week and combed it.
yeah. So we appreciate our good friends. I can't even talk today.
You'll get it going. It's Saturday afternoon.
Ah.
Usually we do it Sunday nights, but we're a Saturday afternoon, so we'll get her going.
Our good friend Chris Jorgensen. There you go. Our good friend Chris Jorgensen in the Ephraim office of Security National. As he says, turning houses into homes. Traded some texts with Chris this week. He said he listened to the podcast, said he appreciated the shout out. If you need anything in the way of mortgage, refinance, building a home, buying a home, whatever you're doing, give Chris a call. Again, 435-283-3000. So we appreciate them being our title sponsor again this week.
Absolutely. You know what? Speaking of that, I say absolutely a lot. When I went back and edited the podcast, I say absolutely a lot.
Isn't it funny when the things you don't normally, like I watch a lot of podcasts and you don't pick up on little idiosyncrasies that you do. But when I went back and watched ours, I noticed I do a lot of things too.
Mm-hmm. A lot of repetitive things.
Say a lot of repetitive things. You do a lot of repetitive. You say the same words over and over again. But we're getting there.
Thank you, Chris Jorgensen.
Yes. So what are you hearing so far about the first episode, season 2?
We mentioned the YouTube portion of it, which I think is a game changer. Listening or watching a podcast, I just know for me, there's something you can when you're at work, you can turn it on your computer, and you can listen. But every once in a while, you can just pop in, look and see what's going on,
Right.
and it's just something different about it.
Yeah.
It brings it to life, and I don't know. I had a lot of texts come through this weekend saying that it was cool. The studio looked nice. It's a work in progress. Our lighting and things like that, we're trying to get dialed in, but we had good response.
Yeah, it was good. I did have somebody at the basketball game last night came up to me and said, it is nice to watch it because, like you said, when you're listening to a podcast and there's a pause, it gets eerie real fast. But if you're watching it on the video, it makes sense if I'm looking at my computer, looking at my notes, or we're just thinking about
Messing around with the audio or whatever.
thinking about what you want to say, then all of a sudden, oh, okay, now it makes sense. So we did have a viewer, good friend Taylor Newman, who said, hey, I appreciate it. So he noticed that as well.
We had some good comments.
We did.
We actually had some people participate, and we'll talk about when we get down to in the number segment. We had some people participate, so someone's going to go home with some swag today.
Yeah, it was nice.
Absolutely.
We were very happy. We, of course, we're always checking how many downloads we have and how many views we have on YouTube. So I think for a first week that we're coming right off of football, some of the teams haven't even played yet.
It was just a few days after football.
Yeah, so this is brand new. I felt pretty good about what we're seeing so far.
The other interesting thing, and I just because of busyness in life and it just getting the YouTube portion of it, we didn't hit Instagram very hard. Mm-hmm. That's usually where we get a lot of the marketing for the podcast is on Instagram. I think we only got one post up. That was kind of negligent of me, but we'll get more up, and I think the podcast downloads, and they were still substantial. So
Yeah.
It'll build. We'll be a little bit more active on social media.
Compared to our first week last year, we're miles ahead of that. we had no. I can still remember it was Thanksgiving morning, and I kept listening to it, and you just pick every little thing apart about it, and I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know. Do I dare tell anybody about it? What do I do? And then it kind of just took off. It kind of had this life of its own and kind of just took off and morphed into what it became.
The other thing that I realized is there's a lot of marketing channels, and it takes time to get into all those channels. So anyway, overall, the first week, I think it was good. It was good to get the launch. It's good to get the season going.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I felt is it didn't quite feel like basketball season yet because we didn't have any games. Mm-hmm. It felt like basketball season last night, though.
It did. It was nice to be. It was nice to be back in the gym, wasn't it? It was.
How was the PA announcing?
It was.
How were the pipes last night?
I'll admit I was a little bit rusty. It took me a minute to get back into it, getting to know the kids, the numbers, getting back in the feel of the game. For me, when you're doing PA, if it's a clean game and everything's going well, it's I don't want to say it's easy, but it's a lot easier. Last night, at least at the Gunnison game, there was a Gunnison Wayne County game. There was a lot of fouls. It just didn't ever really get any momentum going, and sometimes those things are hard. You get a lot of guys coming in, a lot of subs, and a lot of fouls, a lot of things going on. So it was nice to still be back in the gym.
You were down at the scorer's table, and our good friend Stewie, he was working the shot clock. Mm-hmm. I don't think there was not one violation last night, not even close.
No, the only, and we'll probably talk about this in a minute, the only violation, I think there was 2 of them in the game last night, was the fact that we just forgot to reset the shot clock. But as far as that, there was zero impact on that. In fact, I forgot it was even there. Yeah. So
I wonder if Stu forgot a few times too.
Yeah, he did. There's so many things. The officials came over and they said, here's the things to watch for. Here's how you reset it. Here's kind of the protocol. We also had a public address announcement last night that said, please be patient.
I did catch a little of that.
This is new. It's going to take some time. Overall, I don't think it affected. I was there, watched the freshman game, watched the JV game, watched the varsity game. Zero impact.
I can honestly tell you I never looked at it one time.
No, to me, it was completely, of course, usually when I'm announcing, I don't really focus on it. Never even noticed it was there.
And no, I really honestly, I don't think I even looked at it. Anyway, inconsequential.
Yeah.
It was good to be in the gym last night. It sucks watching from the stands. I'm going to tell you that. I got to find something else to do.
Yeah. That's the one good thing, and I think I've said this before last year. The nice thing about doing from the scorer's table, number one, you got the best seat in the house. You can hear what's going on the court. You can hear all the interactions. But number two, it keeps me out of trouble because I can't yell.
So that's true. Maybe we need to go broadcast games or something.
Yeah.
Entertain me. Give me something to talk about. Anyway, it was a good night last night.
Yeah.
Good to see Gunnison get a win to start the season.
To your point, this was the first kind of quote-unquote full week of basketball. Lots of preseason basketball. So you're seeing all kinds of teams that normally don't play each other are playing each other. It started on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Not a whole lot of games, but then last night really started to ramp up.
So a couple more games.
Let's talk a little bit about how our 2A teams fared this week overall.
Something I was particularly paying attention to was Region 16 teams. All of them play. Well, Duchesne has not played yet, but North Sevier played early in the week. Gunnison played last night, and Millard played last night as well.
Yeah.
And North Summit, I think, played on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, they did.
So North Summit dropped a tight one to Manila. Mm-hmm. You ever been to Manila? I think this actual game was in North Summit.
I think years and years ago. I believe it's out by Flaming Gorge,
I believe
right?
so, too.
Yeah.
But they played good basketball. Mm-hmm. 1A team. North Sevier started off in New Panguitch, 1A team. And Millard started off with Panguitch over at home at Millard, same 1A team. And Gunnison started off with Wayne. Traditionally, well, in Central Utah, 1A teams, there's a lot that are close by. Mm-hmm. So they're good games to get because the travel is minimal. But I've noticed year after year, 1A teams get the best of 2A teams almost a large portion of the time.
Why is that?
They play good basketball. They really do. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. Actually, I was texting a coach today because a lot of times 1A teams handle 2A teams, and he made I sort of read a text because it was good information. Same systems year after year, great feeder and youth programs, huge town support, good hard-nosed, tough, small-town country boys, and they play all year round. Mm-hmm. So for schools for 2A schools, if you're playing football in the fall, that's going to take easily half of your team, if not more.
Right.
And games have moved up a week earlier than they have. The past couple of years, they've been creeping up much more earlier than Thanksgiving. So now you got games that started on the 15th, somewhere around there.
Right.
So you've got games 2 weeks earlier than, some teams aren't playing until the 30th.
Right.
I know South Sevier doesn't tip.
Yeah, Enterprise too.
Till the 30th. So that's 15 days. Now, of course, you're not practicing all those days, but that's a considerable amount of time to get ready.
Oh, absolutely.
San Juan, they played championship on Friday, have Saturday off, Sunday off, tryouts on Monday, Tuesday I have a game.
Yeah.
And they played, who'd they play? They played Paiute, 1A team,
yeah.
and got beat.
Yeah, I didn't know this, but I was texting our good friend, former coach Travis Black in San Juan, and he said that was a UHSAA sanctioned game between last year's 1A and 2A state champions.
Where was that played?
At Paiute.
Okay.
I believe it was at Paiute. I know it wasn't in Blanding, so I thought that was interesting.
They do that. They used to be, SVC used to host that game because we played in it the one particular year. The sun shined on Gunnison Valley. And we made it to the finals. We played a game at the SVC the following year against Duchesne. So that's cool.
Yeah. So
but anyway, back to our point. 1A they play great basketball.
they do.
And of all those games, Gunnison against Wayne, it was the only win of the 2A teams playing 1A teams.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was good. It's interesting to see those teams year after year. I do think the football is a big thing. Kids in those 1A schools, that when they play basketball, and that's what they do. They do have some baseball in the fall, but it's over early enough, and I don't think it's as much of a kind of a conflict, if you will, as football is. Football is just football.
you're all in. You got to go.
Yeah. And with baseball, you don't get that physicality that's there. So a lot of these guys are just banged up.
Good point.
Even the fact that they're not practicing, you get guys that are just physically tired and banged up, and they've been playing football for 10, 11 weeks, and they just need some rest.
One observation I had last night is the Bully Dogs that did play football, they were gassed last night.
Oh yeah, you could tell.
It's different. It's a different, obviously, physical activity, basketball versus baseball, but they were gassed and probably, they're also worn down from playing since July, basically.
Yeah.
So any school with football players, they need a little time to recharge the batteries.
Mm-hmm. One other interesting observation, had another coach that reached out to us this morning, and they had been playing a 2A team who had been playing some 1A teams over the weekend, and his observation was this, and I'll just read it. It says, RPI has teams making influence decisions now. So traditionally, before the RPI, preseason really didn't matter. You can schedule 1A teams, 3A teams, 4A teams. You're just trying to get your guys ready. Now, a lot of teams are methodically thinking about, okay, do I want to take this game? Is it worth me, let's say if I'm a 1A team, is it worth me scheduling against a 2A team and risk losing? Is the improvement in my team worth that, or is it worth the hit in the RPI? And I think that's unfortunate. So many teams have said that. I know in baseball, I talked to a lot of coaches that said this thing. They wish we had just a preseason, non-RPI, 3 or 4 games just to get your kids ready.
That's a good point.
Because right now, if you're, let's say you were North Sevier, you play on Tuesday, a lot of these teams, there's just no preparedness.
No, you have one day. No, that is a great point.
So there's no days off. You have to be careful about that, because even if you play, let's say you play a tough preseason schedule and your team's getting better and you're losing games, you're getting hit in the RPI because wins are king. And it's an interesting discussion. I don't know how you do that other than just say, hey, you have X amount of games, but something to think about.
No, it took about 3. I think we're about third year in the RPI.
This is a fourth year.
Fourth year.
Yeah.
You started to see the first year, no one knew what to expect. The second year, a couple people started getting that. Last year and this year, that is definitely, scheduling is based upon that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because you will see preseason will influence your RPI. Now, we talked a little bit about this last week. Some coaches are saying, hey, I think my team's good enough. I'm okay to take a hit in the RPI because I still think I can compete, and that's okay. But other teams, you have a bad preseason, you get buried down in the 8 to 10 spot, especially in 2A, and it's hard.
So you get down below the 8 spots. You're for a 9, you're on the road. For your playing game. You're traveling to a home site for a playing game to a higher seeded team. That's a tough road to hoe.
It is hard. So we've seen some interesting things. Most of the 2A teams so far are playing teams in the lower classification. Most of them are playing 1A teams, which usually happens. The difference is you're seeing a lot of 1A teams winning,
knocking them off. Yeah,
and so it'll be interesting to see how it moves through the rest of this season and how future seasons, how that changes things.
Yeah, true.
We talked for a minute about the shot clock and the fact that at least last night our observation was there was really no impact. Thoughts on that?
No, I think it's been minimal. All the coaches I've spoken with really hasn't been a concern. So it's like we said the first night, I think this is just going to be some background noise, and I really think that's just going to be some background noise.
Yeah, and interesting you say that. I turned on the Millard-Panguitch game after Gunnison's game last night because I wanted to watch that and see how it went. It was zero. I was like there was nothing going on there. It was just a regular game. The only time, I think there was 1 or 2 times where they forgot to reset the shot clock. Other than that, no impact whatsoever. So for all the hoopla, what it was, talked to administrator at Gunnison who said that it was pretty spendy.
What was the price tag on that?
There was some sponsor money, I understand, and some local businesses who helped out with that. But I think he said the upgrade to Gunnison Valley High School was about $28,000. Now that included some scoreboard work.
Yeah,
I think we got a new scoreboard and the shot clock because there were some things that just weren't compatible. But still, $28,000, and on top of that, now you have another person sitting at the scorer's table.
You know what I couldn't figure out, honestly, and maybe coaches were all for the shot clock. I don't know. But it seemed like administrators were more excited for the shot clock than anybody was, which makes no sense to me whatsoever because the price tag is significant. But I guess that's a rabbit hole we could go down. And it
here's one other observation I was thinking about. This is a little off topic, but if I was to build a gym, if I was to build the perfect high school gym, you know what I would do? I would build a side gym off to the main gym that had a glass wall in it where all the kids could go in and play basketball and watch the game while the regular game was going on.
That's a solid point.
You think about every time, and I think actually at Millard High School, they have one of their gyms that's open. It's kind of a side auxiliary
down
gym.
The hall a little bit, yeah.
Where all the kids go and play basketball. When the kids show up,
there's nowhere for them to go.
There's nowhere for them to go. And I've noticed this too. I saw this social media somewhere. Somebody had built a new football field, and in one of the far end zones, they actually made a little mini field where all the kids go and play.
Genius.
Problem solved.
The other thing I can't understand is we have, in my opinion, the setup at our gym is fantastic.
Oh, I love it.
The bleachers underneath the basket are, in my opinion, 50, mid-court, all that kind of stuff, overrated. The ends are the place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the ability to have those there, but we don't put them out. And I don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, which kind of goes to my point last night that you notice, and you go into gyms where that happens, invariably what's going on under the basket?
Kids are down there, which kids are down playing. Obviously,
kids are down playing.
I don't blame the kids. I mean, kids, they're there at the gym and they're hooping it up and they love it and it's awesome. Let's roll those baskets out, and guess what? Kids will sit up there, and that's where they like to.
They sit and tee
the people shooting free throws.
Absolutely. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but I was thinking about that last night.
Yeah.
The group of people that you want at a high school game are those kids, right? They come out, they see they've got big brothers, friends who have big brothers, or they see these kids. You remember being a young kid, man. You just idolized the kids who were playing high school basketball at your high school. I think one thing that is so critical for any program success is you have to let those kids be a part of that. And if they're not a part of that, pretty soon they stop coming, they lose interest, and then your program dies. So
I know a couple years ago there was probably Bones and his posse, and the year younger than them, and even Gary's grade. They had some shirts, and they were up underneath the basket getting after it. Mm-hmm. That got squashed. Yeah. Kind of disappointing.
Yeah. So it's anyway. I didn't mean to derail the conversation, but
where do all the fanatics sit as the adults as well on the other side underneath the basket?
Yeah. And I noticed last night when we've talked about Millard's gym is one of the toughest places to play, but all their students sit directly under the basket on the one end. And it gets wild that they've got their band and their fans. I was watching the game last night, and they were loud.
Yeah, Coach Rhodes said it was a good atmosphere.
That is what you want in a high school gym. Yeah. That's part of the fun of going. We actually had a really good student section last night at Gunnison. How much funner would it have been? Is that correct English? Much funner?
Yeah, sure.
I noticed the kids were there, but they were kind of tucked away up in the top corner, and I thought, I remember when they were down under the basket, and that's part of, as much as it's high school kids competing, there's still an entertainment aspect to this, and there's a fun aspect. And if you take those away, there's so many other things to take up people's time and energy, they'll just stop coming.
Absolutely.
And when people stop coming, your gates suffer, and program runs out of money, and all these things kind of steamroll. So, anyway.
Can I put an end to this?
Yes.
Just open the side bleachers.
Just open the side bleachers.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I usually like to say tonight, but it's this afternoon. Why don't you tell us why we're recording today?
Well, we're taking a long due vacation.
Nice.
Yes. It's much overdue. It's probably 10 years overdue.
Well, it's not any vacation. Where are you going?
We are going to, there's several years ago, many years ago, when we would sit down and watch basketball, one of our favorite things to watch was during the Thanksgiving week, you have a lot of these big-time college teams traveling to different tournaments, and you get Dukes versus Michigan States versus Gonzagas and Kansases.
The big boys.
And one of the funnest things we would always sit up and watch is the Battle for Atlantis. Just this small, tiny gym. It's dark in the stands. You can't even see it. There's like 3,500 people in this arena that they make there in the Bahamas at the Atlantis Resort. So Jackson and I always talk, man, we're going to go there when Kansas shows up. When Kansas gets invited to the Battle for Atlantis, we're going. Well, this particular year, you got Kansas there and you got the Cougs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we're going to go and partake in the Battle for Atlantis.
So what games you watching?
So we're going to it's actually a true tournament.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you've got the first day of games, which are on a Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving. Those games are slated. So you got Kansas versus North Carolina State and BYU against USC. And then there's Butler,
the Bulldogs,
Wisconsin. Who else, Bones? Two other teams there. So you get winners play winners, losers play losers. So you actually have a true champion on Friday.
Oh, nice. So are you going to the Jayhawks game?
Yep. We got tickets for Jayhawks games, and then we'll pick up the Cougar games when we get there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of tough to get tickets to the Jayhawks in a 3,000-seat arena.
I can't imagine why. I mean,
I
did a big win this week over the Dukies.
Well, returning national champions and some big wins. They barely squeaked by the T-Birds last night, by the way.
I did see that. Shout out to our alma mater.
The T-Birds, they pushed them. It was a 2-point game under a minute.
It was Bill Self back.
Yes, now he is. Self-imposed sanctions for Billy Self, but he will be back in the Bahamas.
Nice.
So anyway, so we're going to saddle up and we're going to head out there. Oh, Bones tell me Tennessee is another team there. So big time basketball.
Yeah, it's big boy basketball.
So it was a little bit of work to get tickets, but we got it arranged and we're heading out.
Nice.
So that's why we're recording today, so we can get out of here.
We've had a lot of side tangents today, but it's been okay. This afternoon, we're going to talk. We did a high-level breakdown last week of the region. I don't want to say a breakdown. We just did an overview.
Just an overview.
Today, we're going to start with our real true region breakdowns. We're going to start with our hometown region, Region 16.
Yes. I grabbed the, let's give us the lay of the land here with.
I usually have mine If my stuff's far away, I can see. This is where the video is great because normally people would say, hey, what are you guys doing?
That looks clean. That's like HD right there. So I just grabbed the region standings from the Des News just to see where we shaped up last year. Let's see, Millard Eagles 8-0, Duchesne Eagles 5-3, North Summit Braves 3-5, North Severe Wolves 3-5, and the Bully Dogs 1-7. That's how the region shook out last year.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this too. Millard Eagles they really were the out in front. They were leading the pack from beginning to end. They had a banner season last year. Coach Rhodes had his team going. They came over to Gunnison, watched them play. They were a lot of fun to play. And Duchesne, even towards the end of the season, caught fire. I would say North Summit, North Severe, and Gunnison really struggled most of the season last year to really kind of find any identity. Those were three teams who for years had some stacked teams, and they just went head-to-head for years and years, and then just had a little bit of off seasons, if you will. You kind of go through those ebbs and flows of getting big-time players and rebuilding, and I think one of those teams this year will have to rise up.
Interesting note about the RPI. In my opinion, Duchesne was a casualty of the RPI last year. Mm-hmm. Coach Hoops, he had big hopes for his team last year, and they struggled early on. They had a really tough preseason schedule, and by the time it was region play, they were so far down in the RPI. They started playing well towards the end, but they end up with South Severe for their play-in game, which is those are the games you're going to find yourself in if you fall low in the RPI in the preseason. Now, they took South Severe. It was maybe like a 3-point game, if I'm not mistaken.
One possession game.
So they had the talent definitely to compete at the high level in 2A, but they got so low that you get to that play-in game, and that hurdle becomes too big.
Yeah, it's hard
to get over that one play-in game on the road. Mm-hmm. So, but Millard Eagles, they were the class of that region last year.
Yeah. Well, let's just start at the top. Maybe let's start
let's start in reverse. How about that?
Okay, let's do that. Start in reverse order from where we ended last year.
So let's start with the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Let me honestly ask you. Last night you were down on the court. What was the feel with the Bulldogs last night? Just from the PA guy, how did you think they looked? What was the feel?
It felt scattered. That's the way I felt last night. There were times where it felt like things were getting ready to go, but they just never could quite go. It felt like a church ball game. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it just felt.
First, yeah.
It was the first game. There was a lot of fouls, which didn't help getting in any kind of momentum for either team. That was, if I could say one word, it just seemed scattered.
That would be true. I looked at that and I thought, you got football players that are just coming in, and they've practiced just a couple days because you had to split tryouts on Monday for non-football kids, and then football kids show up Tuesday. So it was hard to put it all together. What did you think? My opinion, my impression, I thought their pace of play was much better than it was last year.
Absolutely, yeah. I felt like they were getting out in transition a lot better. I think one thing that will improve, the shooting wasn't great last night, which is expected.
Understandable.
Some of those shots dropped last night, and that's a 30-point game. I think in time it'll go. Some other observations I have, maybe we can talk about here in a minute. But overall, I thought the pace was good.
I'll agree with you. Yeah. That's what that was the noticeable difference to me.
And I felt like. I felt like guys were coming in at good times too, and there were some good sets that they were running and some good flow. I felt overall it was good flow with the guys on the floor.
Can you think back? Could you identify a play of the game? And I'll tell you what it was.
Honestly,
Cody Hammond's baseline jelly layup and one.
Yes, that was good, and it was loud when he hit that.
That was cool.
And the one other one where John took the deep three and got knocked down.
Yeah, the and 1-3. Yes, yeah. That was cool.
So there were some signs last night. There were some things that I would like to have seen, just me personally, and some of this was due to an injury. I'd like to see Brogan Christensen more involved in that offense. I think for Gunnison to be successful, the ball has to go through a couple guys on offense, and I think he's one of them. He doesn't have to take all the shots, but I think he's got to be more involved in offense.
That is a great point. I didn't think about that, but yeah, Brogan needs more touches and he needs more shots. He's one that looked like he's just worn out from football.
Oh, he's tired. Yeah, you could tell he was tired.
You could see that, but that is a fantastic point. More shots have got to go through Brogan.
Mm-hmm. I thought our guard line played well. I thought Cody played well. I thought Jet played well. I thought we did good at getting into offense. I thought we took good shots. Just didn't shoot well. Again, it's early.
It's early.
And so I don't do that. But the good thing was they kept the hammer down and put the game away, because it's easy in those type of games. You get up and you kind of get lackluster and let them come back. They didn't do that last night.
A couple things that I wanted to analyze as I went through these region teams was just statistically. One thing that I noticed last year is Millard was a fantastic scoring team. All the others struggled to score. Mm-hmm. Last year in 2A, Gunnison averaged 44.1 points per game. That's 16th in 2A. They struggled to score.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that's going to have to improve this year. They're just going to have to find more scorers. And to add to that, a faster pace of play will allow you to get up more shots and hopefully increase your scoring. Last time I checked, you got to score to win. Mm-hmm. And also, basketball becomes pretty exciting when you score a lot more too. So those are a couple of things that I noted last night. Improved scoring. And one thing Gunnison's going to have to find is some consistent three-point shooters.
Yes.
Carter shot well last night, made 2 or 3, and there was some scatterings of ones here's and there's. But you never got the feel like there was a scary guy on the court for Gunnison that the other team had to, stop from shooting threes. Mm-hmm. When you have guys like that, it really impacts the way the other team plays defensively. If you know there's a shooter that you have to get out on, mm-hmm. It really stretches the defense. Gunnison's got to hopefully develop and get a shooter consistently shooting that can do that.
Yeah.
Is that Brogan? Could be. There's a variety of guys that could be, but I think that's what they need to focus on is getting a consistent. They just need to improve their scoring.
Yeah, and that's where I think, and this is just for me. The way I would like to see. There's a couple guys I think as I come down that I want to have the ball go through. Obviously, John, very dynamic. Brogan. Whoever the other guys are, to me, I think those two guys, the offense needs to flow through those guys. And I think
can I add one other name?
Yeah.
Tyson's got to get more shots.
Tyson, yes, that's true. I'm
Tucker.
Still getting a feel of all these guys again. I think if those guys will run that offense, I'd like to see Brogan not just hanging out on the perimeter. I know he's a good shooter, but he's a big kid, and I think he's kind of that stretch four that we talked about. If he can develop that mid-range jumper, a little bit of a post game, what that'll do is it'll get some of those guys coming in where guys like Cody and Carter and Jet out on the perimeter then are open for those shots, and we go rebound. I noticed we had a lot of rebounds. I don't think we necessarily rebounded great last night, but we did what we needed to do.
Yeah. I like the pieces that the Coach Mosman has mm-hmm. there. I like the direction they're heading. I'm kind of excited to see they get a win against Wayne, who was somewhat outmatched in this game, but Gunnison will have their hands full when they got the returning champs, Paiute.
Yeah, Paiute's tough.
Next win, 2 weeks. Sorry, excuse me. After the Thanksgiving break, they got Paiute.
Yeah, but overall, I like what I saw. I felt the pace was good. There was a good feeling in the gym last night.
Yeah, and they went eight deep. John Wilden, Cody Hammond, Brogan Christensen, Carter Hill, Tyson Tucker, Jet Hill, Zach Overly. Mm-hmm. Was that 8? 7. Oh, and excuse me, Bryson Sorensen got some court time too. I knew there was an 8. There was 8. So they went 8 last night. Ran a lot of guys in. So overall, my take, it was a good night for the Bulldogs.
It was good. You get a good preseason win. They put up 66 points, which is good. Those type of games can go either way, and I felt like it was positive.
Last year, just to contrast, last year they played Wayne at Wayne, same opening game. That was a 3-point game. Wayne had a chance to tie at the buzzer. Mm-hmm. They struggled to score down there. So much improved this year.
Yep, absolutely.
So far. So
yeah.
Kind of exciting. I'm happy for them.
Yeah. Let's move to the team just south of us, the North Severe Wolves.
The Fighting Wolves. Coach Shepard in his second year. Coach Shepard is a great dude. He is a good dude. He loves basketball. He loves his team. They played Tuesday night. They opened against Panguitch. Now, as a side note, I think I would avoid scheduling Panguitch in the preseason. Early.
Of all teams, year in and year out, Panguitch is a top 5 1A team. Most of the time, a top 2 team.
Yeah.
That's just
most
who
of the
they are.
time a top 2 team.
That's just
Most of the time a one team.
That's what they are.
Yeah.
They're big. They shoot the ball well. They are extremely well coached. They're good.
Yeah, and then that's so North Severe goes. They have 1 day of tryouts basically, and then they're on the road playing at Panguitch, and Panguitch is big, and they play real physical style of basketball. And the other to note, when you talk about slow shooting for 2A teams to start the season, 1A teams are clicking right away.
Right.
So they're always shooting. Man, they're good shooters too. But North Severe scoring last year, they were just a tick above Gunnison at 15th in 2A and scoring at 47 points a game. Once again, they struggled to score, hard to win when it's you're challenged to score every possession. Returning players, Kyson Bouchard, I like his game.
He was at the game last night.
He plays a little bit like his old man was a baller and could score and was creative with the basketball. So Kyson is a point guard. You have Randy Elmers, a shooter. Keaton Hallows, same thing, out shooting. Grayson Bennett, I love his game too. He was tough last year.
He was good. He hit some big threes against Gunnison last year.
I like his basketball. He plays hard, and he's skilled. I really like his game. Some other players that Coach Shepard lists as newcomers that could make a difference for him: Jacob Johnson, Warner Roberts, Efrain Bernardino, and Trayton Christensen. Overall, talking to the coach, Coach Shep, I mean, it's obvious that North Severe is lacking in height.
Yeah.
I think he's got 4 starters under 5'10". And what that does, it puts in a tremendous amount of pressure to score and also to rebound. So then you've got to adjust defensively. 2-3 zones with little size. Zones become very difficult to play because you just don't have arm reach and coverage. And so just playing teams straight up man-to-man become a challenge because then guys can post you if they have bigger players. So they're going to have to coaches going to have to get creative defensively to create a little chaos, a chaotic game, wreak some havoc defensively, full court, extend pressure to get some easy baskets, because scoring in the half court with a shorter lineup becomes difficult unless you're knockout shooters, unless you can just flat shoot it. So that's where the Wolves are sitting at right now. They just played 1 game, right?
They just played 1 game. Yeah, they don't play again, I think, until the 29th or the 30th. Speaking of Kyson, his dad actually called me, and he was listening. He was coming back from Colorado. He's deer hunting. He's like, I finally got service, and I dialed up the podcast, and I said, how the Wolves going to be, from his point of view? And he said, I think we'll be competitive. He felt good about it. A bunch of these guys were over in Gunnison last night. They play Paiute. They play Wayne County in a couple weeks. So I ran down Kyson after the game and said, hey, it's good to see you. How are things? And asking him about the Panguitch game. And his first comment was, they're big.
Yeah.
And when you have a team like North Severe who doesn't have bigs and Panguitch who does, and you get in a half-court game, it's tough, especially when they were on the court. Well, I think they'd had 1 practice too, and they played on Tuesday. So I think the Wolves, the one thing about the Wolves is they're passionate about their basketball. If you've ever been to their gym at North Severe, they get after it over there. Mm-hmm. These kids will play with some tenacity. They're not big, but they'll bring it every night. They've got some challenges ahead of them this year.
A text from Coach Shepard. I said, Coach, we're going on the podcast today. What do you want us to share about your team? So I'm going to read his text. It says, as far as our team, they're definitely hungry. These kids feel like they have something to prove this year, and they are ready for the challenge. We have a team who competes and plays with heart. Anything can happen when you have those types of kids on your team. Mm-hmm. Coach Shep loves his players, and he knows. I mean, it's just the reality. When you at a 2A schools, you get what you get. Yep. You dealt a hand, and this is what you got to play your cards. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he's a competitor, and he's going to get the most out of his kids. So I'm excited to see what Coach Shep and his team can do this year. I think, once again, they face the same struggle as Gunnison. They've got to score. Consistently, they've got to score more than what they were. So that's your Wolves.
Now let's move up way north, up to Colville and the North Summit Braves.
You know what's interesting about North Summit is we've had some amazing battles with North Summit, probably some ugly and some dirty battles with North Summit.
Yeah, there's
over
been
the years.
some ones, yeah.
We've had some wild, dirty games up there, and we've had some wild knockdown dragouts here in Gunnison. But you know what's fascinating? This is one thing that I love about high school sports and rural sports, and that is in those environments, those nasty, testy, hated rivalry situations, games at small rural schools. Jackson and our family met one of the best people that we've, one of our best friends we met by playing North Summit Braves. And I got a picture right up here. It's got a picture of Jackson and Hayden Blomquist. We met Hayden, I don't know, maybe 5-7 years ago.
Been a while.
Playing basketball. I was coaching. He played for North Summit, and going into his senior year, his junior year, man, he was lights out. I mean, he was all-around player, could dunk, shoot. Then he was diagnosed with leukemia. And so the summer before his senior year, he was diagnosed with leukemia and couldn't play his senior year. Was unable to play. Well, Jackson and I happened to be up at Primary Children's up at the University of Utah and going to some radiation treatments, and I had saw a text come through, and I don't know where I even saw it from, but I saw a text that he had been diagnosed with leukemia, and he was going to be admitted to Primary Children's to start chemo treatments. So we had not officially personally met Hayden, but I'm like, Jackson, let's go visit Hayden. And at this time, Jackson was still good. I mean, he was walking, he was functioning, but we were getting radiation treatments. So we went over and met Hayden officially for the first time at Primary Children's in the cancer division. And Hayden, his treatments went really well, and he's back, and he's kicking ass right now, living life. But he was always good to check on Jackson. Always texting Jackson, and so we have him up here. But anyway, not to continue going down that road, but North Summit, we have a special place in our heart for them.
Yeah, good folks up there. Aaron Priest, who's been the coach up there for a while. Aaron's always been super good. Anytime I remember playing up there when my son was playing, had some special things going on up there. Since then, actually became really good friends with a lot of folks up there in Colville.
I know, yeah, you got some good peeps you keep in contact with.
Quentin Jones.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go down that road.
That's okay.
I thought of North Summit, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, Hayden's sitting right up here. So anyway, carry on.
Quentin Jones, who was our arch nemesis for years. I mean, it was every time we played, it was like, where's Quentin? Where's Quentin? And he would just destroy us. And Hunsaker and Morrill and all these guys, it was like we didn't know what to do.
We couldn't crack him up there. We could beat him in Gunnison. We couldn't beat him up there.
It was just a tough place to play. And interesting, what happens is you, like Benny said, once you get done with these battles and you break some of those barriers down, all of a sudden you find out there's some just really good people, just like you are.
Yeah.
And Corey Jones, who was Quentin's dad, became good friends with him. We still text all the time. Wade Morrill, who played against my son, he's out in the mission field now. He was actually serving with a kid from Gunnison for a while. And so made a lot of those connections. There was another young man, I believe his last name was Smith. I can't remember his first name, that's in my son's mission right now, and they've talked about some of those battles. So as crazy as those battles were with North Summit,
believe it or not, there's some good folks there.
There's some really good folks up there in Colville.
Last year, North Summit was led by do-it-all Trey Pace. He was a special player.
Yes, he was.
And I think with Trey Pace, North Summit was able to get a couple more wins in region to finish. What did they no?
Yeah, they finished third.
I was like, I thought they finished third in the region last year. The skill of Trey Pace really was a difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
I think the when we played up there, Gunnison was leading the game well far in advance. Maybe might even been 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
Third quarter, Trey Pace comes out and just takes the game over.
Yeah.
He caught one, a shot went up. He caught it off the rebound in the air, two-hand, yammed it, and it was game over after that. They just steamrolled. But he was the difference maker for them last year.
Yeah.
They had some other role players, but he's the one that carried them. Mm-hmm. In scoring last year, in overall, North Summit was 54.1 points per game. That's 13th in 2A, so just slightly above North Sevier and Gunnison. But they struggled to score too.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of their challenges this year is who's going to step up and take Pace's spot from last year.
That's a hard.
He carried that team. I know Sawyer Richens is back, who had hurt his ankle the year before, so he didn't really play last year on the guard line. They've got some other guys that we'll talk about, Mel Brown, Wyatt Morrow, Buck Sargent, but they've got to find some scorers. If there's anything about the Braves, they are going to play hard-nosed basketball when you go to Colville. I don't care who you're playing. It is a hard place to play.
With North Summit, even as they did struggle at scoring towards the end of the year, they darn near had Roland Hall beat in the playing game.
Oh, yeah.
Roland Hall ends up winning 64-61 in the playing game. That was at Roland Hall, too. They had, one possession, one turnover, one bounce of the ball, they win that game. They're in the state tournament, and then all is forgotten, the previous part of the season. So I think that is indicative of how they're going to play. Even though they may be lacking in whatever, they're going to come scrap, and Coach Priest is going to have them grinding away.
Yeah.
Hopefully get some more wins.
Yeah, there'll be a fun team to watch. Let's move just a little bit farther out in the basin from Colville. Let's talk about the Duchesne Eagles.
You know what I thought about the Duchesne Eagles? I don't know why this is so funny, but you get the Des News capsules that they put up, which they do a good job with those. They send these questionnaires out to coaches, and the coaches respond back with whatever. And at the end of all these questionnaires, it says, "Is there any comments you'd like to make about your team to share with the Des News audience or whatever?" And Coach Hoops, his comment is, "Excited."
Classic.
Excited. That's Coach Hoops. You're not going to get a lot of fluff from him. Mm-hmm. You're just going to get just straightforward what it is, bare bones, bare knuckles, here we come. So he's excited about his team. So last season, Duchesne finished second in the region. Mm-hmm. Let's see here, region record of 5-3. Overall in scoring, 51 points a game, 14th in 2A. Kind of a trend here in Region 16.
Yep.
We are 16. What is Gunnison? I got to do this just because, just fake. Gunnison was 16th. North Sevier was 15th. North Summit was 13th. And Duchesne was 14th. So not a lot of dynamic scoring coming from this portion of the region. Couple observations for me for Duchesne last year is I thought they had a lot of great pieces. They just didn't. They struggled in the preseason. But when it really mattered, they played in the preseason. They played South Sevier extremely tough at the SVC. Then they met South Sevier again in the play-in game. I think that was a 3-point game.
Yeah.
During the season, they pushed Millard. I think they lost at a buzzer beater at Duchesne, and within a possession or two when they played at Millard.
Yeah.
So they played some of the top teams in 2A last year within a possession or two.
Yeah, and from what we understand, they lost Torgerson last year, who was a part of that. Not a big scorer.
Fabrizio as well.
Fabrizio. But I think the nucleus of this team was really that sophomore group from last year who are juniors this year. And you throw in a couple other pieces, but they've got some kids who have played a lot of varsity sports, not just basketball, football, and baseball. So these are kids who they know how to go out and compete.
So Coach Hoops, I really like his personnel that he has. He's taken his guys and he gets the most out of them. You've got point guard Cade Gines, Jep Young, Parker Crum, Hunter Gardner, Dallin Porter, Coulter Gines, and Hunter. Did I say Hunter Gardner? And Hunter Gardner. Mm-hmm. That's probably going to be the bulk of his rotation, those 8 guys. I like the pieces as he has.
Yeah, I like Jep Young. We've talked about him, big, tall, lanky kid. I think he has the potential to have a big year. My personal feeling, if Parker Crumb's got to have a big year for Duchesne. They've got to have somebody that steps up. Last year, 11.5 points a game. I don't think he had a great season. But he has got to have a big year, and then somebody else on their guard line has got to really step up for him.
Yeah, so they've got 5 great pieces, and almost they have the traditional pieces to the team. You got a traditional point guard. When you think of a traditional point guard, small, quick, aggressive, can assist, pass. Got a shooting guard, Parker Crum fits that role. You got your traditional center and Jep Young, which I'm sure they'll post him. He can step out and shoot a little bit. He's got a soft jumper. And then you got forwards. I thought Dallin Porter and Gunnison last year when they played down here, he played fantastic. I think he's going to be a big difference maker at the forward spot. And then you got a couple other guards that you feel in Hunter Gardner and Colton Gines. They fit more of the point guard. And there was one other shooter that he spoke about. I mean, let's look at his name, but I think Duchesne's going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, they were, like you say, they had a very tough preseason. They finished second in the region last year. Kind of quietly did that. They pushed South Severe twice, pushed Millard twice. They've got really the key of their nucleus coming back. The one thing about Duchesne, they're going to be hard-nosed. They're going to play defense. They're going to bang with you. They're not afraid of being physical. And on top of that, going up to Duchesne, it's a tough place to play. You've talked about how it's some gyms are just tough like that. So I think they could be one of these teams that make some noise this year.
Preston Davis is the other name that Coach Hoops has mentioned. And if I forgot any names, please forgive me. But I really think Coach Hoops has a great nucleus here of players. He's got some. I think he's got the pieces to make a deep run.
Oh, for sure.
We may hear about them later in the podcast today.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's move to the number 1 team last year, the Millard Eagles.
Millard Eagles, Coach Rhodes in his 3rd year. We've said a lot about Millard, and I never get tired of saying this, but I love the way they play. Last year, in points per game, they were 3rd in 2A. So you talk about the difference in this region, 16. Why was Millard the class of the region? Scoring. They're scoring 64.8 points per game. That was 3rd in 2A. They can flat score.
Oh, yeah.
And when you can score, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, to that point, just really quick, don't lose your thought, but I'm just looking overall last year in region. Millard scored 537 points in region play. That was the top. The bottom was Gunnison at 312, a difference of almost 225 points.
Yeah.
So you can see they can get out and move.
Yeah, so you'll win a lot of games where you can put up points. And the other thing we didn't cover as far as stats goes with these team, so not only was Millard 3rd in scoring, but they were 8th in defense. So out of a margin of about 14, almost 15 points a game, which is very impressive. You contrast it, say like Duchesne. This is probably put Duchesne in a nutshell last year. They put up 51 points per game, and they gave up 49.3. So very, very slim margin of error.
Right.
Between wins and losses. That's tight. But Millard, they played well. They won a lot of games, but an average of 15 points a game almost. So, let's see, players. Do it all. Hunter Rhodes, man, he looks like a big boy now playing. I think you watched that Penguich game. I watched it. And I'm like, yeah, he's smooth. I've said that a lot, but I really like his progression to his game. His size, you can just tell that he's putting work into his own body and his own craft. He's got bigger. Brant Stevens looked a little bit more aggressive offensively, the first game that we saw. And one thing that's interesting about Millard is just the makeup of their team. They got these 2 dynamic scorers, and then they just have looks like 5 or 6, 7 scrum guys, but those scrum guys are skilled and talented. You notice they're good passers.
Oh, yeah.
They run great offense. And I often thought this, just from the surface, if you looked, you think, maybe a couple of these guys are ball hogs. And usually when you got a couple of ball hogs, then the scrum guys or the rebound guys, they might get a little bristly that they always have to just play defense and rebound and do the dirty work. But, man, I tell you what, in offense, those bigs better have their hands up because Brandt and Hunter will find those guys at any time. They dish. I think last time we mentioned both those two had 90 assists apiece last year, which is absolutely phenomenal. Their style of basketball, it's fun, it's aggressive, there's a lot of motion, a lot of great passing, and when you add unselfish scrum guys and rebound guys and defensive guys with great scorers, great things happen.
Yeah,
that's Millard, in my opinion.
That's my you briefly mentioned this. My very first observation when I turned on the game, as I looked, and I'm like, holy cow, these guys have beefed up from last year. Hunter Rhodes you can tell he's worked on his body. Stevens, all these guys, they've put some time in the weight room. They're stronger. Everything was looking good. Now it's the first game of the season. But
they were playing Panguitch.
They did play Panguitch, who by all intents and purposes are probably the number one team in 1A. So that's not a slouch team for your first game of the year. And I don't want to say they easily beat them, but they were in control the whole game. To me, that is a very good barometer to say, all right, where am I just coming out of the gate?
Yeah, so there was one impressive stat watching that game that came out early on. Panguitch was up 7-0. Millard went on a 19-2 scoring run against. Now, that could happen, but against Panguitch, that's rare.
Yeah,
and a 19-2 scoring run.
Yeah, and when you see Panguitch, they're big. I think Panguitch was bigger than Millard was, and they got up and down the court. They got some good shooters. They have some big inside guys, and Millard just systematically just kind of took over. Hunter Rhodes is smooth. Stevens, these guys are going to be tough this year.
Well, what they become a handful is if you have to play them in man-to-man, to keep Stevens and Rhodes in front of you is difficult. So they break containment and they attack. You have to bring help. And, man, these guys, they're bigs, they're forwards, and they're centers, man, they're just slashing and just getting layups. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, some personnel for Millard: Hunter Rhodes, Brant Stevens, Taylor Davies, Michael Ralphs, and then you've got Gillens, point guard, great young player, Colton Hatch, and Glover. Mm-hmm. A lot of those guys all seem to be the same body.
Yeah, they are.
But, man, what they do is very good. And interesting note, Michael Ralphs was not present in that game. He was at a national cross-country meet or something like that in, I'm not sure, Arizona or something like that. So they were down a senior starter in that game as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Millard's going to be tough. The other thing, too, I just want to say, we talk a lot about X's and O's here. They have some fantastic young men. Last year, when we had just started the podcast, we talked about this. We were over in Millard, and all their seniors were sitting off to the side, and you were talking to Coach Rhodes, and I just kind of sneakily went over and sat by the starters, and they kind of looked at me like, what are you doing here? And we started talking, and they opened right up, and after that, it was just opened this dialogue. Everywhere we saw them, they were excited. We ran into them one night out in a North Severe game. Fantastic young man, and that's what we really want to promote too, and say, yeah, they're good basketball players, but they're even better young men.
The other very first observation, turning on the game today, I noticed the high and tight haircuts.
Hunter got a haircut for sure.
Oh yeah, he was mop head last year. They were all high and tight cut, and maybe that's. We got to reset our stuff here. I got to get our producer down here to reset our thing before we get something else going on. Sorry, technical difficulties. Now it's back up. I know we've been going for an hour because now it's reset.
Yeah. That's a crazy thing about you get down here and you start talking. You think, how long has it been? An hour goes by like so fast.
So we had our background thing. I made it for an hour, and then we just exceeded the limit. And then Bones is the only one that can run this TV, and so I had to go figure out how to do it. Anyway, they look sharp with their high and tight haircuts. Gunnison seems to think that long hair is cool. But I told him, I said, trends are going to change, and pretty soon high and tights are going to be in again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, great young men at Millard.
Yeah, fantastic. That was a fantastic breakdown of Region 16. Looks like Bones is back.
Thanks, bud.
So a quick rundown: Millard Eagles, Duchesne Eagles, North Summit Braves, North Severe Wolves, Gunnison Valley Bulldogs.
Now that's how it played out. Well, in the Des News, I think the coaches poll, it shook out.
A little bit different.
The coaches poll shook out Millard, Duchesne, North Severe, Gunnison, North Summit is how the coaches poll shook out for this region. We're not going to make any predictions on how we think it's going to shake out. We'll let the players do the talking on that.
Yeah, but either way, it's going to be a great year in Region 16.
One other comment I wanted to make, not to belabor this about Region 16, but I had this distinct thought that we're going to have between Millard and Duchesne. I think we got a nice little rivalry there, with a couple very, very competitive coaches that want to win. We got some competitive players. We got some tough guys on both sides. These games were tough last year within a possession, at both places. We could have a nice round 1, round 2, maybe something beyond that.
It's interesting.
So this matchup right here, Millard v. Duchesne, we're going to focus on these. These are going to be some good matchups here.
Exciting.
Yes.
A lot of good things. Thanks for the great breakdown. Again, I don't think you'll find a better breakdown and in-depth research on 2A basketball teams anywhere than right here on the Fourth Row.
Bingo.
Let's move back into our new segment that we call Inside the Numbers. We started this last week.
I love this
It's
segment.
actually really fun.
Yeah.
So Inside the Numbers, the way that it works, sponsored by Robertson Kimball Accounting, always supporting their South Severe Rams and supporting the Fourth Row. We appreciate them very much. So each week, one of us is going to come up with a number, and we're going to throw it out there. Why don't you give us your scenario, your number, and the answer, because I saw there were a lot of responses on the YouTube video this week.
My number last week was 117. That was the combined coaching years of experience on this particular team's bench. That would have happened to be my good friend, Bud Randall, and his staff at Enterprise. I got the breakdown here. Enterprise coaching staff. Coach Randall, 26 years. Coach Truman, 16 years. Coach Evans, 11 years. Coach Phelps, 39 years. Coach Jones, 25 years.
Wow.
Total of 117 years of basketball at Enterprise. Now, there's no substitute for that.
Yeah.
When you got that many fine gentlemen tutoring and coaching from freshman level all the way up to varsity level, that's cool.
Yeah.
So our number last week was 117. I was just looking to see how many comments we actually got on that.
Last time I checked, there were 9 or 10, something like that.
Looks like we got 11.
11
on here. So
wow.
that's better than none.
I noticed most of them had chosen Enterprise.
Enterprise and Beaver.
Yeah.
Beaver was another, which is a good choice. But Enterprise. So what I'll do here is, you haven't looked at these, so you just select a number of 1. Let's see here. Let me count these up. You just pick a number of 1 through 11, and I'll see which name that is and tell you who won our Fourth Row swag.
Let's go with the number 7.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold on, count those up again. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Gabby Bowler. I bet you she's from Enterprise.
I would dare to say.
She selected Enterprise.
Gabby Bowler.
So Gabby Bowler will get you some Fourth Row swag for winning our first ever Inside the Numbers contest.
Fantastic.
How cool is that?
That's a lot of fun.
So do you have a number tonight?
I actually have a combination of 2 numbers. My numbers tonight are 2 and 3.
Okay. All right.
So building upon what you talked about having successful programs, I got thinking about this. There are currently 2 basketball programs in 2A who have won back-to-back state titles in the history of their schools.
Going to push a little bit here.
So those are my numbers this week. If you want to come up, there are 2 2A schools.
2A schools right now?
Right now.
Okay.
At the time, they may have been 1A schools, but they're 2A schools.
Currently 2A schools, right now.
Right now.
2 of them have three-peat.
Three-peats. They won back-to-back state titles, and there's a bonus point if you get to name the coaches. Both of the coaches from those schools, I don't know if they're in the Hall of Fame for high school here in the state of Utah, but if they're not, they should be. So
Great numbers.
that's our inside the numbers for this week. So
the goal is now, let's see if we can get more than 11 comments.
yeah,
That would be the goal. So also, if you, just leave us a comment.
appreciate it.
I was just looking through some of these, reading some of these. Rochelle, awesome, guys. Hope it's a great season. How was the casserole? It was good, Rochelle. Thanks for asking. Tater tot casserole is one of my favorites.
It's very good.
I don't know. Very, very good. But I like your number. We'll look into that next week.
Awesome.
I don't even know what the hell that is. Well, I'll find out.
All right. Well, just briefly before we move into what really matters, let's talk for a minute, just briefly, about realignment.
Realignment, honestly, I don't know a whole lot other than it's coming up.
Yeah.
I do think it's good for us just to talk about just for a second and get a little bit more educated on it. Mm-hmm. But every 3 years, they change and adjust regions and adjust classifications. And a lot of it is affected mostly in football, more than the others. Mm-hmm. But this past realignment, is it every 3 years?
I think it's every 3 years, yeah. So it'll take effect in 2023.
Following. But see, San Juan moved to 2A last year. This year they'll have one more year, won't they?
I think that's correct, yes.
They'll have 3 years. Anyway, realignment can be a huge thing. It can really harm schools, and it can really hurt, really benefit some schools. I mean, let's get real. I mean, San Juan really benefited from 2A this past year, particularly in basketball. Of course, they were in the finals in 3A the year prior, and then 2A this year. But it becomes very controversial. Let's just say that when you start talking about alignments.
Yeah, and to your point, the one for some reason the football one just gets so out of whack. I was just looking at what the proposed one was, and I don't know what the rhyme or reason is in football versus the regular one, because they're two very, very different, especially when you get into the smaller schools. When you're in 4A, 5A, 6A, I don't think it really changes, but the 1A and 2A, specifically in football, it dramatically changed. One of the big ones that I noticed has Beaver dropping down to 1A in football. That's going to get some people ruffled. That's scary because
now let me counter that by, should it be scary? They're barely middle of the pack in enrollment in the 1A football classification. They're barely middle of the pack.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at it right now. You got 233. Now, this is approximate 233 students at Beaver High School. Millard's got 300. Gunnison's got 268. Enterprise, 266. North Summit, 248. Those are all larger than Beaver.
Yeah.
So
we would perhaps say that that's scary for Beaver, but really, can we blame Beaver for being an excellent football program based upon their size?
No, I mean,
I think the argument comes in when you start talking about the private school size. That's where, and then somehow Beaver gets lumped into that. And I'm not advocating for Beaver whatsoever. I'm just saying that's what we do, is we think, oh, Beaver's going to blow everybody away. But
it's interesting because the football one is so very different than just the regular one. The regular one, in my opinion, doesn't change a whole lot. I mean, it stays the same. In fact, I don't think there's really hardly any changes in athletics aside from football. Football is so different. Mainly because there's a very small portion of 1A teams that actually play football. And so once you start to peel all those out, then all of a sudden it changes, and then you get into the whole 8-man game, who's going to declare for 8-man the following year and how that all works. So this is the first draft. You see some scuttlebutt out there on Twitter and a couple things. People complain here and there. I'm going to go on record and say the big schools, you guys have no reason to even talk about anything. You got schools that have 15, 16, 1,700 students. You compare that to some of these 1A students, they're in double digits. I mean, it's not even the same. And when you compare us and travel and everything that goes into it, I think the smaller classifications, it changes a lot with them versus the big ones. So.
I think it would be fun to, a dedicated podcast to the realignment and football, not necessarily football, the realignment. That would be interesting. Mm-hmm. Do a little bit more in-depth research in the realignment and how that could impact things. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be.
But that's coming down the road.
Yeah, it's going to be here before we know it. There's always winners and losers. I know that the state does the best that they can, but let's be honest. At the end of the day, it's politics, right?
It's logistics.
There's logistics.
There's logistics, convenience, and the other thing. In all fairness to the UHSAA, there could be factors that we are not aware of. I don't want to close the door and just say that it's all just
point taken.
That it's not just that it's all just ignorance.
I agree.
And that's why I think a podcast. Maybe we could get somebody. I don't know. Maybe we can get somebody from the UHSAA on, just for the heck of it. And maybe there are some factors that are very challenging that they can't work around. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to close the door completely on them. But.
Yeah, and I think to your point, at least for me, sometimes we get caught up in the fact that what do we normally look at? We're looking at just straight athletics. There's a lot of things. When I say athletics, I'm talking about football and basketball primarily, but there's drill team, theater, all these other things that are sanctioned by the UHSAA that all have to go into those factors as well. Yeah. So we see the big gorillas out there. What we don't see is the behind the scenes. So, to your point, there'd probably be a lot of it. Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't smell very good.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's
anyway.
True. Yeah. Well, that was good. Good discussion. I think that's a great idea. Let's talk about that more down the road. And it would be nice to get somebody from the state on the line and really explain to that. So
we can always try.
Get to the bottom of it. Well, we've come to the time where we want to talk about what's really important, and that's the Power Five.
The Power Five? I thought we had a clean, legit Power Five last week. I don't think that's going to change at all.
Yeah.
Some of those teams haven't even played yet. I know Kanab has played a couple early preseason games down south. I know you've spoke with Coach Glazier. I don't think they've been challenged whatsoever with those games. Maybe a little conditioning work, which has been good because they had maybe one day of practice, a couple days of practice, mainly. Mm-hmm. So I think the Power Five is for now is going to remain intact.
Yep.
Unless you have any complaints about that. But.
No, I was just going to say, as we talked about last week, the Power Five this week, again, will be sponsored by our good friends at Barney Trucking. If you want to drive one of the big, beautiful, I always mess up on that, big, beautiful blue and white trucks, keeping the lights on here in Utah, go to barneyjobs.com.
So last week in our Power Five, we had, from the top, we had Kanab Cowboys, South Sevier Rams, Millard Eagles, Enterprise Wolves, and the Parowan Rams.
Yeah. One observation, and to your point, I don't see this changing. Two of the teams haven't even played yet and won't play until the week after Thanksgiving. Kanab had 2 blowout wins over 1A teams. A couple surprises there. They did get a move in. Derek Brown is his name. Sounded like he was a good football player. He put up 20 points the other night against Monument Valley, which really is just a tune-up game for them. But they've got one more scorer to add to their arsenal. Kaysen Janes is still on the mend from football, so hopefully Kaysen gets back soon. Other than that, my only observation was I think Parowan's found some supporting cast for Brock Felder.
They got some kids that were putting up some points.
I believe Robinson had 20 points on the night against Bryce Valley.
Yeah. And Mortensen. Was it Mortensen? Yes,
Mortensen.
18, I believe, 16 or 18. So if you got some consistent scoring with Felder, it could be good for them.
Yeah.
So I like our Power Five right now. So I think it's going to stay the same. I do like the addition of the 2 dark horses.
I like that.
How did that shake out this year? One, the Bully Dogs. That was one of our dark horses. They got a win over Wayne, so they can stay a dark horse for another week. I'm fine with that.
The other one was the San Juan Broncos. Listen, they're a team that I'm going to say they're rebuilding. They've got a new coach, Coach Slavin's down there. They're putting kids on the court who have for all intents and purposes, zero varsity experience. So they played in the 1A, 2A championship game that was sanctioned by the state from the last year's state champions. They played Paiute. Paiute easily beat them. That's not necessarily taking anything away from San Juan. I do think they've got some work to do, though.
Yeah, and they will.
They will.
But that's true. That's the reality of it. Who would you like to add to fill that dark horse spot this week?
My team for this week that I want to add back in is Duchesne.
Bingo.
Duchesne hasn't played a game yet, but based on what we're hearing from Coach Hoops, what we saw out of them from the end of last season, and what I know that they're going to be doing to prepare up there, we want to add Duchesne back in as our dark horse. Again, this is early, but before too long in the next, so really we have Thanksgiving week coming up this week. The week after that, it's gangbusters. It's game on. So within a couple weeks after that, you're going to have a pretty good idea how teams are going to start shaking out. And I know it's preseason. I know it's still early, but I think the barometer is going to move one way or the other. I like the feel that Duchesne has right now. I think we're going to keep them as a dark horse. Most of this won't change next week because I don't think anybody really plays. There might be a handful of games maybe on Tuesday.
And I think the following week after that, I think we've got the Central Utah preview, which we're going to be able to see a lot of teams down there.
Yeah.
And then Coach Hoops just mentioned that they've got a 3-day trip coming up in their preseason. They play South Sevier, Enterprise, and Beaver on a 3-day swing.
Wow. So
that could tell us a lot about, if we don't already know by then, what the Duchesne Eagles have.
Yeah.
But I think that's a fantastic pick, and we're going to be excited to follow them.
Yeah. So that's a Power 5 for this week. Again, it's early, but
it gives us a good place to start, though.
Yeah. You have to start somewhere because there are teams that are playing games, and you're starting to see some trends. You're starting to see some players show up who we weren't sure if Parowan was going to have a supporting cast for Brock Felder. We weren't sure, even though we picked Kanab, we know what they have. All of a sudden now they've got a new member of their arsenal down there. So we saw Millard play. So you're starting to see, all right, we're seeing some trends. We saw the Bully Dogs play, saw what they did. Even though it's early, things are always moving.
Yeah, it's exciting. But I like our Power 5 and our dark horses, and in 2 weeks things could shuffle, but I don't know. I like where this is going. I think this season is going to be fantastic. The other thing to mention to close with, of course, you got your closing. I'll let you get your close first. Don't you have a G-Telco close?
I do have a G-Telco close. Our last segment, our summary every night, is going to be sponsored by our good friends at Lightburst Broadband, the Sanders family, serving all the Gunnison Valley, working hard to provide telephone and internet service here for everybody here.
My parting shot is, last night I had the realization that there's going to be some storylines. We have no idea what they are, but they're going to play out. Mm-hmm. And just to get that vibe of being back in the gym last night, got my juices flowing again, basketball juices, and I'm excited. I'm pumped. And I'm excited to go see Kansas play.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I won't tell you what I'm going to do this week other than Thanksgiving, but it won't be as fun as watching Kansas, that's for sure.
Exactly.
My wrap up for tonight, this was a great podcast. As we break these down and we put agendas together, we've got a sheet here and it's got some stuff on it. But sometimes we just never really know where we're going to go. And tonight was one of those nights where I think we got into some backstories, we got into some history, and really were able to dive into what we wanted to do. And that's talking about young men, talking about programs, talking about basketball and why we're doing this. It was a great podcast. A little bit longer than last week, but that's just the way it goes. Where are we at?
1:20.
Hour and 20 minutes.
It's legit.
But we appreciate everybody. We've had some great feedback. I love the feel of the video, especially on a night tonight. We've had a lot of pauses where we're looking at things on the normal audio.
You spend a lot of time editing that stuff too.
Right now it's like, it's not there. I specifically wanted to talk about for a minute about our sponsors. I appreciate them. We've had this week, I've actually had 2 other people reach out to us and wanted to support the podcast and support what we're doing. They just called up.
Blows your mind, huh?
I didn't ask them. We didn't reach out to them. We've been very careful about who we reach out to and what we do. Both of these individuals called me and said, we want to be a part of this. So
special. There's a lot of special people in this world.
When you do good things happen. We saw that last year. We're seeing this already again. We hadn't done anything until Thanksgiving last year. And I think about what's happened just in the last 10 days. Pretty special.
Yeah.
And I think this year we're going to see a lot more of that. It's a cool thing to be a part of it. This isn't just us. We're just the medium to bring this message out. And once people go out and find us, there's a lot of people that don't even know we exist. I was talking to actually one of the officials last night, Joe Reynolds.
Joe.
And he faithfully listened to our podcast. And I said, hey, Joe, you want a treat? Go dial it up on YouTube. And he's like, are you kidding me? I'll go check it out. Said it's a whole new world. There's a lot of people out there who haven't really discovered the Fourth Row yet. And really the Fourth Row is the backstory to 2A basketball.
Yep.
That's what it is. I mean, we're here and we like to tee-hee and do whatever we do and get our backstories. But that's what it is. We've got some other things in work we're not ready to release yet, but some other exciting things. Maybe next Sunday
I think we're about 2 weeks out, but it's going to be good.
We're about 2 weeks out. I think it's something that's really going to open the eyes of the whole 2A community. So keep that in mind. If you got some guesses, let us know. You'll never guess it, but we're excited for that. So for everybody out there, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I know we will. You're going to have fun down in the Bahamas. I'll be here eating some turkey, relaxing and recovering. So for myself, Andy Hill, for the coach, Benny Hill, and for the Fourth Row, we're out.
Thank you for spending your time with the Fourth Row. For more information, check out our website at fourthrowmedia.com or send us a message through any of our social media channels.